Hi, Bill here with 30-Minute Wood Shop. Thanks for joining. Today I want to show you how to make a small box. Now I'm making this box specifically for some things that I have here on the bench. This is basically a leather sewing awl. I have this from my dad. He bought it back in like 1966. Had it been around the house forever. All right. Used to reside in a beat up candy box. Lasted for a long time in that, a long time. And then I got a hold of it, last couple more years, and then eventually it failed and I threw it in this can. So I had everything stuffed in the can. Not bad, it works, takes up a small footprint, but I can never get to anything conveniently. I always have to dump everything out, search, find stuff. So what I want to do is I want to make a box to make it easier to find the things that I need when I need them. Now to do that, by the way, if you're interested in making this project, there's a plan in the bottom. Go ahead and hit see more and then go to my blog and you can find a free plan. There's also links to the tools and things I use. You can check those things out. But materials I'm using, what I have here is some pine, and I planed this stuff down to 5/16 of an inch. The reason for that is this is recovered because I was using it to do some test work on my CNC, and I didn't want to really throw it away. So I managed to recover 5/16 of an inch worth of material. I like the fact it's 5/16. It's a little wider than normal, but still thin. For a small box like this, I prefer the thin material because it gives it a better aesthetic. Also, too, a little easier to work with when I get done. Now, you can go to the big box store and buy some 1/4 inch pine or 1/4 inch, you can get oak, pine, poplar, any of that stuff. You can use that. That works perfectly. You don't have to use 5/16 or whatever. But go ahead and check that out. That's where you can get that material. And hey, let's start laying this out. I'm doing this right now with no plan. So when I get done, I'm going to create the plan for it. But what I have here, a couple things. I have all this thread. So this thread's going to go in this little box, tin right here. This piece might fit. And then I have all these envelopes. These envelopes have different colors of thread, and then I have the actual awl itself. So what I'm looking for probably is something that's going to be able to, let's say, do something like that, be able to put that in, put that in, put that in. These all go in there, so something about that size-ish. So let's take a couple quick measurements here. So I'm looking at about 9 1/4. So about 9 1/4 there, and I'm looking at about 5 1/4 across. If I move this up to here, and it's 5 1/2. So looking at that, I'm probably going to need something that's going to be about 5/16. I should tell you how I'm going to make this first before I do that, because in my mind I've already done this. I'm actually going to take the sides and then I'm going to butt the ends into the sides. Okay, so the side length is going to be my total length. The inside length is going to be the total length less 5/8, 5/16 plus 5/16. The width is going to be the entire width of the end piece. All right, so I'm looking at about, what do we say it was, 5 1/4, 9 1/4? 9, let's see, 9 1/2. More like 9 1/2 to make it comfortable. So at 9 1/2, right, I'm going to add an extra inch to that. So it gives me a little more room to slop around in case I get something bigger. So I'm going to make that 10 1/2. All right, so I got 10 1/2. And then the ends, what did I say the ends were? 5 1/2, 5 1/4, 6. So I'm going to go with 6 for the width. All right, so it's going to be 10 1/2 inches long, 6 inches wide is what the box is going to be. Now, for the depth, this is 1 1/2 inches, and this is 1 1/2 inches. All right, so if for some reason I wanted to lay this down like that, I'd have 3 inches, okay? And I probably want a little bit of clearance in there, so let's add 3/8 for a clearance, so that's going to be 3 3/8. So my sides are going to be 3 3/8 wide. So I'm going to have front and backs. My front and back, all right, are going to be 10.5 by 3 3/8, and then my ends are going to be 6 by 3 3/8. All right, so that gets me the basic box. Now I need to top and bottom. I'm thinking maybe a 1/4 inch overhang, so I have to add a 1/2 inch. So to the bottom, it's going to be, instead of 10.5, it'll be 11. And instead of 6, it'll be 6.5. Okay? Now for the top, it's going to be the 11 inches wide because I want the sides to overhang. I want the front to overhang, but I want the back flush. So that means the back, that 1/4 inch goes away. It's going to be 10.25, or I'm sorry, it's going to be 6.25. Instead of 6.5, it's 6.25 wide. Okay? That way I have someplace to put the hinges. That's all. So that gets me all my parts. All right? So now let's start cutting. I've marked off 10 inches, 10.5 inches here. I want to make sure I cut on this side of the line, so I'm going to put a little X here so I know that's my waist side. And we're ready to cut. Make sure that you're wearing safety gear, hearing protection. I'm using ISO tunes, by the way. These are great. I love them. So let's start cutting. So I have my saw set 3 3/8, and then I have it set so it's just 3 teeth out. A little bit of protection there. There's lots of different ways people do things. That's how I do it. I'm using a gripper. That way I can get both sides to go through the same. So let's start making some noise. So real quick test fit here. Everything's looking good. Even the width of the bottom piece, I was a little worried I might not have enough room, but I have just a skosh over 1/4 inch widthwise on each side. So that's looking really good. Now all I have to do is cross cut it and cut the top and get this thing glued and nailed. So let's glue and nail the box together. To get this glued together, I'm using this Tight Bond 3. Matter of fact, I'm almost out of glue. Tight Bond 3 to get it all glued together. And I'm going to be using some 3/4 inch brads, my air nailer. Those are plenty to hold together. Shouldn't have any problem. I'll throw a couple clamps on it just to make sure we have a good joint. But we should be good to go. Let's glue it up. I'm not going to bother with putting clamps on it. These edges are flush and it's nice and square, as you saw when I threw in my machinist square in here. So I don't really have to do anything else. The joints are tight. I'm just going to leave it. It takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours for this glue to dry. But in the interim, I'm going to start working on the base. So let's do some more sawing. Okay, there's still some fuzz on these corners, so I'm just going to take a hand sander here, sanding block, and just sand those off. Round the edges a little bit. So the CNC work is done. I went back and filled it with epoxy, and then what I've done is sand this out so it's nice and smooth. Now what I'm going to do next, now that I got this done, I did put the hinges on, by the way, just to locate them. All right, and this edge is too thin to actually do the normal. Normally you put a direct overlay, you'd screw it in this way and screw it on this one. Can't do that with this because it's so thin. So I just screwed it from the bottom, and it'll fit just like that. I'll put a couple screws in there and we'll call it good. But now I'm ready for the finish. Let's go do that. Couple coats of boiled linseed oil on here, looking pretty good. The finish is cured. Now I just have to put on these last couple screws on these cheesy little hinges, which is pretty straightforward. So these are really tiny screws. You have to be careful not to overdrive them. And guess what? Our project is done. So this has been a really fun project. You can see I used the CNC and then threw in some epoxy just to brighten that up so you can actually see it. And here's a little surprise. I put in a Gorgon Medusa. So when someone opens it, they might find a little surprise there. I did put in also a small box. All right, nothing much here, just a little 3x4 box. Just drops right in, sits in there for some extra stuff. And there's, as you can see, there's plenty of room for future growth. This is one of those really useful projects, and the project came together fairly quickly. All right, pretty easy to do, pretty fast. Like I said, it gives me a lot of extra space. I'm really happy with the way the CNC turned out in the front, and especially with the Gorgon in the inside, a little bit of a surprise. One thing I do want to do though, I think I want to put a chain, a jewel box chain here. I set the hinges so it would open the entire way, but that'll put a lot of stress on the hinges every time I do that. So it'd be kind of nice if I put a chain in here. So I'll have to get one of those. I don't have it. But a little future improvement there. And hey, if you like this and you think you want to make something like this, hit see more and click on my blog. In that blog, you'll find a dimension sketch for this. It's free. Go ahead and check that out. And also, while you're down there, there's tools and things that I use in my shop that you may find interesting or useful. Click on a few of those and check them out. And hey, if you got something out of this, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. And until next time, good making.